This reading primarily focuses on the origin and ideologies of fascism, as well as the impacts of these ideologies on Italians' views of gender, especially masculinity. Fascism originated with Benito Mussolini and other World War I vets, which had an extreme nationalistic ideology and a hunger for radical change. They overthrew the government in 1922 as a necessary action to defend the country and regenerate moral values, especially as it relates to the fatherland. Some of their key values included a monarch political institution, which later became a dictatorship, preserving fatherland memories, and remembering heroic actions as well as heroic physique. The Futurist movement was later, which had ideologies which were appropriated by the fascist regime, and some of these values were strength, instinct, sport, war, and youth. The image of the Superman of, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, Nesik, was basically an idea that the common man could become God, or a god. Mussolini used this as a propaganda for himself by saying he was a Superman. This was similar also to the New Man, which was a futuristic ideology, which was then kind of incorporated to become the New Italian by Mussolini, becoming a more nationalistic view. Similarly, this idea of masculinity was, as it was quoted from the book, disdain for death in books, love in virility, violence, and war. The New Man became the New Italian with Mussolini. So Mussolini utilized primarily cinematic propaganda to represent himself as the epitome of a new Italian masculinity. So there's lots of pictures of him depicting, his strength, athleticism. He kind of coined like the masculine photos, like the hands on hips, his legs apart, jaws tight, eyes rolling, and deep voice is what it talks about in the book. Also, it talks about angling the camera low so that he appears taller. So talking about a very physical image of masculinity. Also, what they described as a non-fascist man was, it says, flabby, aged liberal, a Jewish profiter's nose, and the two prominent features of an African man. And then more propaganda that they were pushing was, it says, everyone agrees that fascist education of youth into masculinity is one of the most urgent and fundamental aims of the regime. And then lastly, when we look at like the impact of fascism and masculine gender, it's still evident today, or some of those effects are still around. So, for example, from the book, it talked about male children being inherently different from female children in their training of sports, because the boys are going to be lively, muscular, violent, dynamic, all of those things. So just the way that we're describing men and women, young boys, young girls, as being inherently different kind of goes into what we were talking about in class with gender. It also, again, like how we were talking about the different ways gender is expressed or included into our society, so that it's learned, collective, asymmetric, and performed. So all of these things can kind of be seen in the Italian fascist regime.